Okay, hello, this is Sir Riel, and in this video, I am going to discuss Introduction to Psychology, Chapter 1. We have the science of psychology. For the learning objectives, number 1, what defines psychology as a field of study, and what are psychology's four primary goals? Next, how did structuralism and functionalism differ? And who were the important people in those early fields? What were the basic ideas and who were the important people behind the early approaches known as Gestalt, Psychoanalysis, and Behaviorism? Number 4, what are the basic ideas behind the 7 modern perspectives and what were the important contributions of Skinner, Maslow, and Rogers? And how does a psychologist differ from a psychiatrist? And what are the other types of professionals who work in the various areas of psychology? Okay, so first, when you hear the word psychology, what words comes out to your mind? Sige nga, magbigay nga tayo ng mga words na unang papasok sa isip natin once na marinig natin yung word na psychology. Okay, so we have behavior, mind, emotions, thinking, feelings, intuition, consciousness, unconsciousness. What more? We have rational. Okay. What more? When we talk about psychology, we have mental, we have health, we have body, we have brain, and many more. Ang dami nating pwedeng masabi na words when we talk about psychology. Now, let us try to define the meaning of psychology. So psychology is a scientific study of behavior. So when we talk about behavior, it is the outward or overt actions and reactions. And also, it is the scientific study of mental processes or the internal or covert activity of our minds. Kumbaga, when we talk about the behavior, ano bang pinag-aaralan dito? Yung iyong actions in a response to a particular situation. Can you ask yourself, are you still normal? Okay? And we have also mental processes. Included dito yung internal natin such as your memory, your emotion, perception, imagination, thinking, and even your reasoning. Then try to ask yourself, are you still normal? So, to make it short, when we talk about psychology, it is the scientific study of your mind and also your behavior. Okay? Kumbaga, ito yung pag-aaral tungkol sa kung paano ka mag-behave, kung paano ka mag-isip, and also how you feel. And then, yung tinatawag nating psychologists, they are professional practitioner or researcher involved in this kind of discipline, which is psychology. Okay? So let us move on with the next slide. So when we talk about psychology also, psychology is far different from philosophy. Because when we talk about philosophy, it is the study of all things. Nung time ni Socrates, Aristotle, and Plato, kasama ang psychology doon. But during the 20th century, inihiwalay ang psychology. Dapat daw ang psychology ay measurable or meron tayong scientific evidences in order for us to prove something. Why psychology is a science? Because it prevents possible biases from leading to faulty observation. No? Ihiwalay natin kung ano yung kwento lang sa katotohanan. Kung ano yung naiisip lang natin sa nakikita talaga natin. Kumbaga, when we talk about psychology, it is precise and careful when it comes to measurement. Kumbaga, meron tayong step-by-step process in order for us to find the truth. An example to this one, yung ating mga kwento or paniniwala about sanib, sinaniban. Sa view ng ng philosophers, may mga philosophers na magsasabi na yes, totoo 'yan. Ano? Totoo yang mga pamahiin or paniniwala na 'yan. Pero sa mga psychologists, of course, hindi sila maniniwala. Kapag may mga something abnormality na nangyayari sa iyo, sa behavior mo and way of thinking mo, there is something wrong at kailangan magawan niya ng paraan, no? Yung kumbaga meron kang nakikita na hindi namin nakikita, may naririnig ka na hindi namin naririnig. There is something sa mind mo and also to your behavior. Kumbaga, once na may mangyari sa mind natin, it can affect talaga kung paano tayo mag-act dun sa environment or sa society na meron tayo. Again, when we talk about psychology, it is a science because it prevents possible biases from leading to faulty observation, and and we need to be precise when it comes to measurement. Again, may step-by-step process tayo in order for us to find the truth. Okay, next one. So while you might understand what psychology is, so many people are not quite so sure about what psychology does. No, ano nga ba talaga yung purpose ng psychology? Or ano ba talaga yung ginagawa ng psychologist? Ano ba yung mga goals niya? So let us take a closer look at the major goals of psychology. Kumbaga, ano yung gustong ma-accomplish ng mga psychologist? And also, paano nga ba natin masasolve yung tinatawag nating real world problems na nangyayari sa environment and also sa society na ginagalawan natin. So let's talk about the 4 major goals of psychology. Number 1, to describe. Next, to explain, to predict, and to control. So let's discuss all of this. Okay, first, sabi dyan, ano yung number 1? We have description or to describe. It is one of the first goals of psychology that is simply to describe behavior. Kumbaga, what is happening. So through describing the behavior of humans and other animals, we are better able to understand it. So kahit hindi ka naman psychology major, you can also describe things. Kumbaga, andito yung tinatawag nating observation. Yun yung first natin, no? Marunong tayong mag-observe. And um, and also through observation, nakikita natin or nalalaman natin what is normal from abnormal. Ano, even sa tingin mo pa lang, when you describe the person, alam mo yung kung sino yung may something at alam mo kung sino yung normal na gumalaw. Pero may mga times na not totally normal, pero kung makikita natin siya, parang normal lang siyang gumalaw. Ano? Again, when we talk about description or to describe, it has something to do with our observation. What is happening dun sa society or environment na ginagalawan natin or dun mismo sa taong yun. Next, we also have explanation. Kung yung description ay through observation, in explanation, why is it happening? So to explain, psychologists are also interested in explaining behavior. Why do people do things they do? What factors contribute to the development personality, social behavior, and mental health problems. In explaining or in explanation, of course, gumagamit na tayo ng mga theories in order for us para mapatunayan natin yung isang bagay. No? Kaya pala siya nagkaroon ng ganito kasi dahil dito, and etc. Okay? Meron na tayong patunay na, for example, yung taong yon ay, you think siya ay narcissistic. Why? Kasi ano siya mahirap niyang tanggapin kung ano yung mali. Ang tagal mag-process sa utak niya na mali siya. Andun yung sense of entitlement na feeling niya, ay ako yung boss, ako yung president dito kahit hindi naman talaga. Sobrang ma-influensyang tao. Yun yung mga some factor when we talk about narcissistic. Tipong napaka self-centered. Ayan. So, gumagamit na tayo ng theory when we talk about explanation. Next, we have prediction. Will it happen again? It is another primary goal of psychology is to make predictions about how we think and how we act. So once that we understand more about what happens and why it happens, we can use the information to make predictions about when, why, and how it might happen again in the future. So it possible na talaga na kung mangyari ngayon, ay may possibility na maulit-ulit, or sabihin na natin as mangyari din siya sa ibang tao. Okay? Next, we have control. How can it be changed? This is the final goal of psychology, and perhaps most importantly, psychology strives to change, influence, or control to make constructive and lasting changes in people's lives. Kumbaga, through changes, no, natatouch natin sila, nababago natin kung ano yung problema. Hindi tayo nag-stick doon sa ano lang. Okay, nagkaroon tayo ng observation, yes. Kahit sino naman ay pwedeng mag-observe. Nagkaroon tayo ng explanation, pero isa sa major na ginagawa ng mga psychologists is mabago. Mabago mo yung tao, matulungan mo sila. No? Mentally, not physically, but mentally, magkaroon ng changes dun sa problem na na-encounter nila. Again, what are the four goals of psychology? We have to describe, to explain, to predict, and also to control. Okay, now let us proceed to discuss structuralism. Okay, we are going to have an idea about this one and also sa iba pang mga school of thoughts. Kumbaga, when we talk about school of thought, ito yung mga pioneering na pag-aaral about psychology. We are going to talk about structuralism, functionalism, Gestalt School of Psychology, behaviorism, psychoanalysis, and humanistic of psychology. Again, ideas lang for now. Because sa mga susunod na topic natin, mas pag-aaralan pa natin sila. Bibigyan lang natin ng konting idea about the theory or about the school of thought, about the psychologists, paano ba yung nangyari during that time, okay? So first, we have structuralism, or pwede rin natin siyang tawagin as, okay, let me write it. We have structuralism, or also known as structural psychology. So it was invented by Wilhelm Wundt. Okay, move natin. So it was invented by Wilhelm Wundt and Edward Titchener. Pero it was started by Wilhelm Wundt. Okay? And then ang nag-expand ng structuralism nagdala sa Amerika ay si Edward Bradford Titchener. Pero yung nag-start talaga ng structuralism ay si Wilhelm Wundt. Siya yung first na psychologist na nagtayo ng psychology laboratory. Kumbaga, ihiwalay nga natin ang philosophy sa psychology. So, nag-exist ang structuralism during the 20th century. And up until now, it was debated who deserves the credit. Kasi imagine it was started by Wilhelm Wundt, pero yung modify, nag-develop, nagpalawak, nagpakilala ay si Edward Titchener, yung kanyang student. So when we talk about structuralism also, it is a school of field of psychology who seeks to analyze the adult mind. So ibig sabihin, pinag-aaralan yung total experience ng isang tao from the time na nag-exist siya up to the present. So when we talk about structuralism, it focuses on the structure or basic elements of the mind. It is a theory of consciousness that seeks to analyze the elements of mental experiences, such as sensation. When we talk about sensation, it has something to do with, okay, write natin para ano? Para may copy kayo. We have sensation. Okay. Including dito yung tinatawag nating sense of sight, sounds, and also taste. And also we have what we call as mental images or yung ating components of thoughts. And also, sama na natin yung feelings or yung ating affections. It has something to do with the components of our emotions. So later, mas pag-uusapan pa natin siya after natin ma-discuss yung functionalism, and let us try na magkaroon uh, ng differences about them. Okay? So next tayo. Again, structuralism is the major school of thought, pinaka-pioneer. It was developed by Wilhelm Wundt, na tinatawag nating father of psychology, and also Edward Titchener, na nagpalawak ng structuralism at nagdala sa Amerika. Next. So Wilhelm Wundt developed the technique of objective introspection. It is the process of objectively examining and measuring one's thoughts and mental activities. Kumbaga, it has something to do with observation of one's mental state, or pwede rin natin siyang tawagin as a human self-reflection or human self-discovery. Kumbaga, try to ask yourself, kumbaga, andito yung tinatawag nating observation ng sarili. If you are still normal, yung ating mind, or may something wrong. No? Even yun naman, no, ma-experience mo rin naman yung mga ganyang bagay. Whereas, kaya mong malaman sa sarili mo if may something wrong ka or hindi, or nakakagawa ka na ng mga bagay na um, unintentional na nagagawa mo siya. No? Sometimes we are aware, but at sometimes naman we are not. Pero alam mo sa sarili mo if andun ka sa state na you are normal or you have something in your mind. So next tayo. Again, when we talk about introspection, it is human self-reflection or human self-discovery. So next tayo. So katulad ng sinabi ko kanina, structuralism was brought to America ni Edward Titchener. Pinalawak niya. And because of that, maraming taga-subaybay si Edward Titchener na nagsasabi na dapat siya yung father of psychology. Pero mas marami since si Wilhelm Wundt ay inumpisahan ang structuralism, it was credited by him. Okay? Pero up until now, andun pa rin tayo sa pagdedebate kung sino nga ba talaga ang father of psychology. And isa din sa matunog na pangalan when we talk about structuralism, we have Margaret Floyd Washburn, a leading American psychologist in early 20th century, best known for experimental work in animal behavior and motor theory development, a first woman to be granted PhD in psychology or doctorate degree. She claimed not only one but both approaches to psychology, that behaviorism, when we talk about behaviorism, ibig sabihin it can be controlled, it can be learned, and also introspection, yung self discovery, self observation should be involved in studying human behavior. Kumbaga, for the development, para mas matulungan natin yung isang tao. Okay? Ayan. So let us proceed with functionalism. So when we talk about functionalism, it is how the mind allows people to adopt, live, work, and also play. So ni-reject ni William James na proponent ng functionalism, yung tinatawag nating structuralism. Kasi para sa kanya, hindi lang naman dapat na magkaroon tayo ng self-observation about sa sensation natin, about sa mental image o images, or even sa ating feelings or ating emotions. Dapat daw meron tayong purpose at gawan natin yun ng paraan. So when we talk about functionalism, it is one of the earliest school of thoughts in psychology. Kasama niya yung structuralism, pero yung pinaka-major school talaga ay structuralism. Pero both sila ay nagko-contribute for the development of modern psychology. Once again, it was developed by William James. So kung yung tinatawag nating structuralism ay basic elements ng consciousness, for functionalism naman, or for functionalist, rather than focusing on the elements of consciousness, functionalists focus on the purpose of consciousness and also behavior. Functionalism also emphasizes individual experiences, which had a profound impact on our education. So later, let's have a more, kumbaga, explanation about functionalism para mas ma-distinguish natin kung ano yung differences ng structuralism from this functionalism. Okay? So isa rin sa matunog na pangalan when we talk about functionalism, si Mary Wheaton Calkins. So she denied PhD degree because she was a woman. Kasi during this time, meron pa talagang kumbaga against sa kakayahan ng mga kababaihan. So she was an African American and early name in the field of psychology. So ano pa ba yung meron kay Mary Wheaton Calkins? So Mary Wheaton Calkins known for two things: becoming the first female president of the American Psychological Association. Actually, meron din tayong association dito sa Pilipinas. And before nagkakaroon tayo ng foundation ng pagsasama-sama, yung mga psychology student from UST, from Ateneo, basta buong Pilipinas. Ayan. She was denied for her doctorate from Harvard. She was a professor of psychology and philosophy at Wellesley College and developed self-psychology. This dealt with consciousness, emotion, association, color theory, and also dreams. Matunog na pangalan when we talk about functionalism. But sa mga susunod nating mga topics, pag-aaralan pa natin si Mary Wheaton Calkins. Okay? So let us now differentiate yung structuralism and functionalism. So when we talk about structuralism, it is the first major school of thought in psychology na sinundan ng functionalism. Structuralism was proposed by Wilhelm Wundt and Edward Titchener, while functionalism was proposed by William James. Structuralism utilized introspection to break down mental processes. Ibig sabihin, magkaroon tayo ng self-observation. Kumbaga, hati-hatiin natin. In functionalism, it emphasizes individual differences. For structuralism, result had a lack of reliability. Kumbaga, hindi pa siya valid. Hindi, through observation, andun lang siya 'di ba? Wala pa siyang scientific evidences. But for functionalism, although it was influenced by the educational system, pero dapat na maging reliable ito. Dapat na maging valid ito according to William James. Okay. So, I will give an example for structuralism and functionalism para mas maintindihan natin sila. For example, kumain ka ng chocolate, okay? For structuralism. And then, yung feelings and emotions mo nung pagkain na yon, yung memory mo na nandun, ay nag-stuck sa mind natin. Okay. Through your observation, matamis pala siya, no? Ganito pala yung lasa niya, and etc. That is structuralism. For functionalism naman, for example, accidentally you cut yourself tapos dumugo habang naghihiwa ka ng gulay, for example. And then after that, nagkaroon ka ng reaction na dumugo, nag-stuck siya sa memory mo, no? Sinabi ng brain mo na okay, nasugatan ka, dumugo, and etc. In functionalism, may kasunod pa yon. Hindi lang siya mag-stuck yung mind mo na yon, dun sa mind mo na yon. Okay? Kumbaga, gagawa ka ng paraan para masolusyonan yung pagdurugo na nangyari sa'yo. In structuralism, nag-stuck lang siya in our mind. In functionalism, gumawa ka ng paraan. What is your purpose also? Diba? Okay, next tayo. For example, a medicine cabinet. Sa view ng structuralist, ang titignan niya yung by its parts. For example, ano ba yung mga nakalagay dito sa medicine cabinet? We have, ayan, for example, here, tissue, some oils, pain and fever, gamot, and etc. Antibacterial, and etc. Ganyan niya tinitignan when we talk about structuralism. Okay? By its parts. In functionalism, what is the purpose? No? Ano yung purpose ng tissue? Ano yung purpose nito? What is the purpose ng pain and fever, ng oils, ng antibacterial? Kumbaga, andito yung tinatawag natin na wag nating isipin lang. Gawin natin, gumawa tayo ng paraan kasi may purpose kung ano man yung nasa mind na meron tayo. Okay? So, next tayo. Okay, next we have Gestalt School of Psychology. So what is Gestalt School of Psychology? It was developed by Max Wertheimer. He was born on April 15, 1880. He died on October 12, 1943. He was born in Prague, Czech Republic, a psychologist and a father of Gestalt psychology. So what is Gestalt psychology? So Gestalt psychology is pwede rin natin tawaging good figure psychology. Again, it was started by Wertheimer, who studied sensation and perception through Gestalt psychology. So Gestalt idea is now part of the study of cognitive psychology. When we talk about cognitive psychology, it has something to do with the field of focusing not only on perception, but also on learning, memory, thought processes, and also problem solving. So just to give you an idea what is Gestalt, masasabi natin ito na holism. What is holism? Ibig sabihin, kabuuan. Okay. For example, a circle. Hindi mo naman titignan ng circle na by parts. Titignan mo siya as a whole or as kabuuan. Okay. Ayan. Next. Again, Gestalt psychology is one of the school of thought that looks at the human mind and behavior as a whole. Kumbaga, magkasama silang dalawa. Holism. Kumbaga, we do not simply focus on every small components, just like kung ano man meron sa structuralism and also functionalism. Instead, our minds tend to perceive objects as part of a greater whole and as an element of more complex system. Kumbaga, if sa structuralism ay by its parts ng consciousness, sa functionalism naman ay by its purpose, in Gestalt psychology ay as a whole, holistic yung kanyang approach. So again, when we talk about Gestalt psychology, naging malaki itong papel sa mundo ng cognitive psychology. And aside from that, you are looking for a good figure. Ayan. Like this. The eye tends to fill in the blanks, hear and sees both of these figures as circles rather than as a series of dots or a broken line. How do you see this one? So some of the examples of Gestalt psychology we have here. Okay. So actually ginagamit din talaga siya sa mga IQ test. I don't know if nakakapag-answer kayo ng IQ test. Okay, we have closure, similarity, figure ground, proximity, and closure, continuance. So sa mga susunod nating discussion, we are going to talk about ano ba yung kabuuan ng Gestalt psychology. So next, let us proceed with psychoanalysis or psychoanalytic theory. So I know some of you ay may idea na about psychoanalysis at kilala na si Sigmund Freud. So psychoanalysis, it is a theory and therapy based on the work of Sigmund Freud. So Sigmund Freud or sa kanyang tunay na pangalan na Sigismund Freud, a founder of psychoanalysis, tawag sa kanyang mga tagasunod ay Freudian. He was proposed the first complete theory of personality. It is a person's thoughts and behavior emerge from tension generated by unconscious motives and unresolved childhood conflicts. So let us talk about what is psychoanalysis theory. So psychoanalytic theory evolved siya because of Freud's patients suffered from nervous disorders with no apparent physical cause. Okay, wait for a while. So it was started during sa time ni Sigmund Freud na yung kanyang pasyente ay wala namang something na physical cause or sabihin na natin injury or meron siyang sakit na ganito, but nagkakaroon siya ng thinking sa sarili niya na kumbaga parang siya ay may sakit kahit wala naman talaga. I just want to give an example to this one, although it's confidential, pero yung father ko kasi ay nagsasuffer siya from a panic attack, no? Kumbaga, once naiisip niya yung isang bagay, for example, sakit, yun na agad yung tumatatak sa kanya tapos iniinda niya yun ng iniinda kahit wala naman talaga siyang sakit. No? Kumbaga, doon pa lang may something wrong na sa kanya. By the way, Sigmund Freud is not a psychologist, although marami nagsasabi na dapat siya yung father of psychology, pero dahil hindi nga siya psychologist, isa siyang neurologist, no? So, hindi siya kinoconsider as um, father of psychology. Pero yung mga Freudian, ang gusto nila, si Sigmund Freud ang maging father of psychology. Kasi malaki din ang naging ambag niya sa field ng psychology. So when we talk about psychoanalysis, lagi yung tatandaan yung two keywords for this. We have unconscious and libido. So when we talk about unconscious, meaning to say, you are not aware of something na ginagawa mo pala yung isang bagay. Yun yung pinaka-perspective ni Sigmund Freud when we talk about psychoanalysis. And also we have the libido. The libido is the natural energy source that fuels the mechanism of the mind. And when the libidinal energy is stuck or fixated at various stages of psychosexual development and stages conflict can occur that have lifelong effects. So, um, once again, when we talk about psychoanalysis or psychoanalytic theory, it has something to do with our childhood experiences and our unconscious desires influence our behavior. So, may sinasabi kasi si Sigmund Freud about the psychosexual development. Kung napag-aralan niyo siya before about the oral, anal, phallic, latency, and genitals, na kailangan daw ma-meet natin yung tinatawag nating unconscious desires or pleasure natin. For example, sa oral. Kapag sa oral, ang kailangan na masatisfy ay yung mouth. No? Kaya pansinin natin yung mga bata, nag-aano sila, um, nagtatam-sucking sila, yung mga baby. Yun kasi yung tinatawag na na pleasure ng bata during that stage. And according to this theory, now once na ito ay mapigilan or hindi magawa, may possibility ito na maka-affect in the future. For example, kaya sobrang talkative nung tao na yun, no, nung tumanda siya because napigilan kung ano man yung pleasure niya nung bata siya. And even yung tinatawag natin na smoking habit, no? Pagtanda niya, ang lakas niya manigarilyo just because yung pleasure niya nung bata siya, doon pa lang sa oral stage pa lang, na-stop na or napigilan na, may tendency na maka-affect ito sa ating behavior. Again, when we talk about psychoanalysis or psychoanalytic theory, it says that our childhood experiences and unconscious desires influence our behavior. And also, Sigmund Freud believed, ayan. So Sigmund Freud believed that the human mind was composed of three elements. We have the id, ego, and superego. Look at this one. According to psychoanalysis or psychoanalytic theory by Sigmund Freud, we have unconscious mind. Pag unconscious mind, you are not aware. Pag conscious mind, you are aware. Ano ba yung example natin nito? Kapag natutulog tayo, unconscious na tayo nun. Hindi na natin alam kung ano yung nangyayari. Paggising tayo, of course, we are conscious. Alam mo kapag nasaktan ka, alam mo kapag nahihilo ka, alam mo pag may sakit ka, you are conscious. Look at this one. According to Sigmund Freud, na mas mataas daw yung part na unconscious tayo. Unconscious tayo sa nangyayari sa atin. We have the id. When we talk about the id, it has something to do with pleasure, with your pleasure. And we are not aware na marami tayong pleasure sa sarili natin or sa mind na meron tayo. We have the super ego or yung tinatawag nating morality. And we have the ego, the reality. So I am going to give an example to this one. Kapag pleasure or kapag id, gustong-gusto mo yung isang bagay. For example, gusto mong kumain ng ice cream, gusto mo ng ganito, gusto mo ng ganyan. Kapag super ego, andito yung sasabihin niya na, okay, stop, hindi pwede yan. Kumbaga siya yung tinatawag nating angel, wag mong gawin yan. Again, andun yung desires natin, pero kinokontra siya ng super ego. For example, gusto mo mangopya, yun yung pleasure na meron ka. In super ego, sasabihin niya na, wag, kasi masama yan. Kasi hindi yan mabuti. Okay? Si reality or si ego, siya yung nagbabalance dun sa dalawa. Kumbaga, although meron tayong pleasure na kinokontra ng super ego natin, pero the reality itself, yung ego na meron tayo, siya yung mas nasusunod. Siya yung mas nagfa-function sa atin. Okay? Another example ng three components. Okay? For example, gusto mo ng bagong cellphone or laptop kasi online class. That would probably the id. For super ego, kukontrahin niya, ay walang pera si mama or si papa. Financially, hindi pa kami stable. And then si ego, ang gagawin niya, no, siya yung tinatawag natin na pagbabalance dun sa dalawang component. Whereas, okay, wala pa kaming pera, pero gusto ko ng bagong cellphone or bagong laptop. Okay? Kung mapapansin nyo, this is according to Sigmund Freud, okay? May kanya-kanya silang perspective about human behavior. But for Sigmund Freud, it was like this, the three components. Now we are unconscious sa mga desires natin. And kung mapapansin natin, konti lang yung time na we are in conscious mind. So next tayo. So next we have behaviorism. We are going to talk about behaviorism. So behaviorism is a science of behavior that focuses on observable behavior only, must be directly seen and also measured. Kumbaga, it can be learned. It can be controlled. So let's talk about what is behaviorism. So it was proposed by John B. Watson based on the work of Ivan Pavlov, who demonstrated that a reflex could be conditioned or it can be learned. Watson believed that phobias were learned. It is the case of little Albert, baby thought to fear a white rat. Just to give you, ayan, just to give you a brief idea about the little Albert. No, at first, yung bata ay yung bata ay hindi niya alam kung ano yung rat. Ano? And then after that, nilalaro-laro niya pa yan, no, kasi hindi niya nga alam. And then dun sa experiment na yon, ang ginawa nila ay uh, naglagay sila ng tunog. And then after that, dun sa tunog na yon, kinondisyon nila yung bata na matakot doon sa sa daga, no? Hanggang sa dahil nga conditioned na siya at alam niya na nakakatakot yung daga na yon. So lahat na tuloy nang makita niya nakapareho ng daga ay natatakot na siya. Kumbaga nagkaroon yung bata ng phobia. Look at this one. At first, wala siyang knowledge. Pero nung time na kinondisyon na siya, natutunan na niya, nalaman na niya through through this experiment, no? Doon na nagkaroon ng idea yung bata para matakot sa daga and also doon sa katulad or kamuka ng daga, just like bear. Okay? Just to give you a brief idea about little Albert or ni John B. Watson. But we will discuss this sa mga susunod nating topic. Pinapakita lang nito na when we talk about behavior, ito ay natututunan at nako-control or also. Even the classical conditioning ni Ivan Pavlov, no? It has something to do with the dog na at first yung dog ay yung normal na kanyang response kapag nakakita siya ng pagkain ay maglaway, 'di ba? And then nung nagkaroon na ng experiment, sinanay siya na kapag yung dog ay nakakarinig ng tunog, ayan, look at this one here, during the conditioning. So, nasasanay yung aso na even kapag nakakarinig siya, ayan, kapag nakakarinig na siya ng tunog na yon, ay, may pagkain. Kumbaga, naglalaway na agad yung aso. An example to this one ay kung may mga alaga kayo mga hayop, no? At first, ang gagawin mo, of course, lahat naman mag-ano yan. Gusto nila ng pagkain. Yan yung pleasure nila. Yan yung desire nila. And then after that, gamitan mo ng tunog. No? Una, wala lang sa kanila. Kasi hindi nila alam ano yung tunog na yun at ano yung pagkain. Pero once na kinondition mo sila, doon na mag-start na kahit alisin mo yung pagkain at tunog lang yung matira, natututunan yun ng hayop or ng pet na alaga mo. Okay? Again, pag-aaralan pa rin natin ito for the next topics natin. Okay, let's talk about some modern perspective. So this, so psychologists modern approaches or perspective. This perspective used to explain all human behavior. So let us try to explore them, okay? So at first, we have the modern perspective. So we have psychodynamic perspective. It is a modern version of psychoanalysis. Again, what is psychoanalysis? Ano yung keywords for this one? We have libido and unconscious. We are not aware. Ito yung modern version. So it was more focused on the development of a sense of self and the discovery of motivations behind a person's behavior other than sexual motivations. Kumbaga, when we talk about psychodynamic perspective, okay, an example to this one. For example, public speaking. Marami ang takot or kinakabahan when it comes to public speaking. Ano? But let us try to discuss ano ba yung perspective ng um, psychodynamic or psychoanalysis. Diba, when we talk about psychoanalysis, it has something to do with the unconscious mind. Kumbaga, it has something to do with trauma during your childhood days na pwedeng maka-affect sa behavior na meron ka ngayon. Kaya nahihiya kang magsalita, kaya natatakot ka, kinakabahan ka, nanginginig ka. Just because um, napigilan yung pleasure mo nung bata ka. That is why nagkaroon ng malaking effect ito nung ikaw ay tumanda. So that is how we answer when we talk about psychodynamic perspective. Next. Next, we have behavioral perspective. So B.F. Skinner studied operant conditioning of voluntary behavior. Behaviorism became a major force in the 20th century. Skinner introduced the concept of reinforcement to behaviorism. So I just want to give you an idea because pag-aaralan ulit natin siya by next topic natin about B.F. Skinner. Na si B.F. Skinner ay isang psychologist na nagkaroon din siya ng kanyang uh, malaking part sa behaviorism na ang ginamit naman niya ay yung tinatawag nating reward and punishment na in order for us para gumawa tayo ng mabuti na gawin pa na mas tumaas yung self-confidence natin, andun yung tinatawag natin na reward and punishment at meron yung positive and negative effects. Okay? So in our discussion by next meeting natin, pag-aaralan natin yung operant conditioning. For behavioral perspective, public speaking ulit tayo. Takot sa public speaking. Ano naman yung perspective kapag behavior? So for this naman, for you to be able na para lumakas yung loob mo, para mawala yung takot mo dun sa public speaking, andito yung tinatawag natin na conditioning. So ibig sabihin, for B.F. Skinner, like yung ginawa niya dun sa kanyang reward and punishment na pinuri niya, pupurihin mo yung tao. And dun sa pag-praise mo verbally sa isang tao, mas na-uplift yung self-confidence na meron siya. Look, it has something to do with conditioning. Next. We also have, okay, here is the operant conditioning, by the way. Ayan. Meron tayong tinatawag na reward and punishment. Okay, sa susunod na na topic natin, pag-aaralan pa natin siya, okay? Basta just to give you an idea, it has something to do with, for example, pinuri mo yung isang tao. So, of course, pag pinuri mo siya, yun yung reward mo sa kanya, tendency, magiging active siya, mas gagalingan niya pa. For example, nahuli mo naman yung yung estudyante na nagse-cellphone during sa klase, no? Ang gagawin ng teacher, kinuha yung cellphone. So tendency, positive pa rin siya kasi na tumatak sa utak ng bata na kinuhanan siya ng cellphone at mas nag-focus siya dun sa pag-aaral niya. So it has something to do like that, okay? Kumbaga, kino-condition natin yung behavior na meron tayo. Next, we have for humanistic perspective. So when we talk about humanistic perspective, very kilala dito yung mga early founders natin such as we have Abraham Harold Maslow and Carl Rogers or Abraham Harold Maslow. I don't know if na-topic niyo siya before sa personal development during sa senior high school. Ayan, when we talk about the Maslow's hierarchy of human needs, so it was depicted by a triangle na kung ano daw yung pinakamababa, siya yung dapat natin na mas mas ma-fulfill. Ayan, for the first one we have physiological. Next we have safety. Third will be love and belonging. Next, we have self-esteem. And last one, we have self-actualization or self-fulfillment. For physiological, ito, common, no? We have for breathing, food, water, sex, sleep, and many more. So, kumbaga, ito yung pangunang pangangailangan natin. Next, for safety, we have security of body, or for employment, or for resources. Kumbaga, at first, yung physiological, kailangan natin siya para mabuhay. Next, for safety, kailangan natin siya for our for our life na magkaroon tayo ng safeness sa sarili natin, maging stable tayo. Next, we also have love and belonging for love for friendship, love for someone, love for sexual intimacy. And then we have the fourth one, kailangan din daw natin ng self-esteem, self-actualization. Ang pinaka-last natin, which is, according to Abraham Harold Maslow, mahirap siyang ma-achieve. Just because ang dami nating desires sa sarili natin. Whereas, even tayo once na ma-achieve natin isang bagay, nagkakaroon pa tayo ng next level. For example, you want to be a basketball player sa barangay nyo. And then, nung na-achieve mo siya, gusto mo mas mapataas na siya, maging ka na, varsity player ng school nyo. So, nagle-level up once na na-achieve na natin yung isang bagay. Kumbaga, walang katapusan yung kagustuhan natin. Next. Ayan. For humanistic perspective, it emphasizes the human potential, the ability of each person to become the best person he or she could be. Self-actualization, yung pinakagustong ma-achieve ng hierarchy of human needs ni Abraham Harold Maslow. Okay? So let's have the example dun sa public speaking pa rin. Yung sa perspective ng humanistic. Okay? Kumbaga yung fear mo in order for you para malabanan mo yung public speaking, iti-turn mo yung fear na yon into positive, like i-achieve mo yung self-actualization or self-fulfillment na meron ka. Okay? Kumbaga papataas nga, 'di ba, according to Abraham Harold Maslow. Next, we have cognitive perspective. It focuses on memory, intelligence, perception, problem solving, and also learning. Kumbaga, in cognitive perspective, another example to this one, sa public speaking pa rin, maraming questions ka sa sarili mo kung bakit ka natatakot or bakit hindi mo kaya yung isang bagay. So in order for you para ano, para malabanan mo yung public speaking na yon, yung fear mo sa public speaking, of course, gagawa ka ng paraan, no? Ang gagawin mo ay pag-aaralan mo siyang mabuti para magkaroon ka ng mag-stack siya sa knowledge mo, sa brain mo, and then once na nandun ka na sa part na nag-speech ka na or nagsasalita ka na, mas mataas na yung self-confidence na meron ka. Next, in sociocultural perspective, it focuses on the relationship between social behavior and also culture. Kung sa perspective um, ng behaviorism ay it is something to do with reward, verbal praises. In cognitive naman, yung questions, dami mong questions sa mind mo. In psychodynamic, sinasabi yung unaware daw na nangyari during your childhood and then napigilan siya. It can affect nung tumanda ka. In humanistic naman, no, i-achieve natin yung self-actualization na meron tayo. In sociocultural perspective naman, may malaking part dito yung social behavior na meron tayo and also yung culture natin. For example, if yung bansa na yon ay masyado silang conservative, no? So when it comes to public speaking, medyo medyo kinakabahan, medyo natatakot sila just because of the culture and traditions na rin or yung kinalakihan na rin na environment ng tao na yun. Next, we have biopsychological perspective. It attributes human and animal behavior to biological events occurring in the body, such as genetic influences, hormones, and the activity of the nervous system. So basically, it is scientific na din. Maybe because kaya nagkakaroon tayo ng fear sa public speaking is because may something wrong within our body or even our mind na sinasabi niya na hindi mo kaya. Or pwede rin natin include dito yung amygdala. I don't know if narinig niyo na siya. Maliit na part siya sa brain natin, part ng limbic system, na nagpo-produce siya ng emotion na fear. Just only one emotion, that is fear. Okay? That is why ikaw, natatakot ka tuloy, no? When we talk about public speaking. For evolutionary perspective, it focuses on the biological basis of universal mental characteristic that all humans share, looks at the way the mind works and why it works as it does. Behavior seen as having an adaptive or survival value. So in evolutionary perspective, it was proposed by Charles Darwin. Kumbaga meron tayong tinatawag na survival mode na fight or flight response, no? Kung bagang lalaban ka or hahayaan mo na lang. So in evolutionary psychologist naman, yung kanilang perspective kung bakit nagkakaroon tayo ng public speaking ay fear of public speaking is just because sinasabi ng utak mo na gawin mo or hindi mo or dapat na matakot ka. Kumbaga naglalaban yung ganong fear sa brain natin. Okay? Kumbaga fight or flight response. Next. Okay? For the last one, we have here types of psychological professionals. First, we have psychologist, a professional with an academic degree and specialist training in one or more areas of psychology, can do counseling, teaching also, and the research, may specialize in any one of a large number of areas within psychology, Areas of specialization in psychology include clinical, counseling, development, developmental, social, and personality, among others. Okay, next, some types of psychology specialties or specialities. We have child psychologist, pwede rin yung relationship consultant, military psychologist, organizational psychologist, and clinical psychologist. So soon, if you want to be a psychologist, ito yung mga possible na pwede nyo maging trabaho. Ano? Next, we have psychiatrist. It is a medical doctor who has specialized in the diagnosis and treatment of psychological disorders. Kumbaga, when we talk about psychology, tayo yung mag-a-assess when we have something wrong dun sa tao. Kumbaga, tayo yung mismo yung magkakaroon ng evaluation kung meron ba siyang something or wala. Okay? A psychiatrist is a medical doctor naman uh, who can able to uh, na magkaroon ng treatment for a disorder na na-assess ng psychologist. Siya na yung merong may guts para magbigay ng medicine para makatulong when it comes to mental health or dun sa abnormality na nangyayari sa kanyang brain or sa kung paano siya mag-behave. How about a psychiatric social worker? Social worker with some training in therapy methods who focuses on the environmental conditions that can have an impact on mental disorders such as poverty. We have overcrowding, stress, and drug abuse. Okay, I just want to share you sa mga classmates ko before because ayun yung mga psychology major. Sa amin, ako lang talaga yung napunta sa field ng educational setting, whereas I do both counseling and also turo. While most of them ay napunta sa organizational setting, whereas more on office work like HR. And meron kaming isang classmate na napunta siya sa dito sa work na psychiatric social worker. So nagte-therapy siya pero most of her mga clients ay puro bata. Okay, yung mga na-abuse, yung mga batang mga maaga pa lang nawala na ng magulang, nawala sa tamang landas. Okay? So let's see, this is I think this is 2016, 2015, 2016. So look at this one. So kung mapapansin natin, mas marami during this time yung sa field ng clinical, doon na pupunta. Ano? And then, look at the other. We have counseling also. Malaki din yung part here. Pero I just want to remind you na ito ay nagbago na. Okay? Of course, na mas nagkakaroon na ng ideas yung mga students na hindi lang naman clinical when we talk about psychology major. No? It can be an office work. It can be also on educational settings. Kaya itong graph na ito ay almost nabago na rin in 2021. But let us see. As of the moment, try to ask yourself, saang field niyo ba talaga gustong mapunta? You want to be a psychologist? Gusto niyo ba yung nagte-therapy kayo ng mga bata? Gusto niyo ba yung sa military? Maging military psychologist kayo, yung mga nagkaroon ng trauma no during the war, no? Kayo yung magka-counsel sa kanila. You want ba na for teaching profession, just like me, Dr. Masana and Ma'am Shane Hayag, yung ibang mga instructors natin? Or you want to be, sabihin na natin as sa office work, just like Ma'am Shane Hayag, siya ay HR din ng ating campus. Pwede rin yung mga ganun, yung timekeeping, for compensation, nagpapasahod, mga ganyan, health and benefits. And of course, yung pag nagkakaroon ng alitan sa mga co-workers, ikaw yung mag-aayos. Gusto mo ba yung mga ganong klase? Okay. As of now, dapat nag-iisip ka na if dahil pinasok mo yung field na to, so dapat gampanan mo na. Ano? Pero dapat magkaroon tayo ng goals sa sarili natin. Na pinasok ko yung course na to, and then pag-iigihan ko, and then once na maka-graduate, punta ako dun sa field na gusto ko talaga. Okay? So last one, before we end this discussion, okay? So psychology says, when you focus on problems, you will have more problems. When you focus on possibilities, you will have more opportunities. That's true. Ano? As of the moment, lalo na pandemic, ang dami nating problem. At dapat yung problema, hindi na natin pinoproblema ng sobra. Ano? Although part naman talaga yan ng life natin, pero yan kasi yung kumbaga nagde-develop sa atin na mas pag-igihan pa natin sa mga susunod. And lagi niyong iisipin na focus lang tayo din sa possibilities. Kahit minsan iisipin natin na hindi ko kaya, dapat kakayanin natin. Kasi kung kinaya nga ng iba, what more ka pa, 'di ba? Ibig sabihin, magtiwala tayo sa sarili natin. So if andun tayo sa mentality na kaya ko, andun tayo sa mentality na kailangan ko ma-achieve yung goals ko, mas maraming opportunities from you. Okay? Once again, pumasa kayo sa field na ito. I want you na, kumbaga, isa puso. Hindi pwedeng, ay kasi ganito yung course ko, kasi yung ganito yung course ko. Try nyong hanapin yung sarili nyo sa field na psychology. Although, yes, nakakapagod mag-aral, pero at the end of the day, yung knowledge na matututunan mo, you can apply it soon once na nag-work ka na, once na ikaw ay psychologist na. Again, this is Sir Riel. If you have more question or any more clarification, by the way, introduction pa lang siya ha. Hindi pa siya yung kabuuan nung yung humanistic perspective, psychoanalytic theory, we have structuralism, we have functionalism, and etc. We have operant conditioning. Yan pa lang yung mga introduction. Pero soon, sa mga susunod na topic natin, mas pag-aaralan pa natin sila. Okay? So hopefully na may natutunan kayo from my discussion. Again, I am Sir Riel and I am happy to be your instructor for this semester. Thank you so much and God bless us all.